Remember when we used to talk about the paperless office?
E-commerce?
Signing a contract on paper.
And even giving out an agent's pager number?
We're in a mobile world.
We're in a mobile world, and your business needs to be too.
It's a digital world.
Workflow is changing, and so too are our experiences.
There are over 350 PropTech players right now
Competing for the space.
How do you keep up with it all? And what's next?
Welcome to Founders,
A new podcast with Josh Phegan
On the future of workflow in real estate.
One of the greatest challenges of all time for any real estate agent is to really think about how they go to add substantial value to a seller. How do you actually encourage them to be in a position that they can do the right thing? We know that like a property that looks amazing sells itself, and that foundationally, if there's something that needs to be done today, we've got a consumer society that is so fast moving, they want everything already done for them. If you can literally just take in your shirt or put your dresses up and like literally just move into the new house, the furniture's already there, the renovation's already been done, the walls have already been painted, and then you can have someone who's like on a maintenance contract that could just come and look after the whole place, and all you have to do is literally live there. That would be a great society. Now, the foundational idea is that what a great real estate agent does is they provide the right recommendations to an owner around what they need to do to substantially improve the saleable value of a property. And sometimes that's hard, and sometimes you don't want to have to go through the whole thing. There's the challenges of making the appropriate recommendations. What does it really cost to put in a kitchen? How much does it cost to actually put down new floor coverings? Is that really the thing that's going to set this particular room off? And then when we're making recommendations, how do we get someone to declutter without being offensive? And when it comes to actually paying for the whole thing, how do we make it really easy for a consumer? From buy now, pay later type services to upfront charges to putting it on a credit card, the world is fundamentally changing. Well, today we're going to talk to one of the experts in the game who does it really, really well. In fact, she's at the top of her game. So Kahlia Cordony, fantastic. Welcome to the Founders Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Hopefully I didn't build you up too much, but I think that's what you do.
I'm blushing, actually.
Yeah, so I was just talking about you. And this is a really interesting conversation. And so I was saying to you about, it's really important because, you are in the position that you like to add value to property. And it's about that innate passion that, believe it or not, when a property is built brand new, it doesn't stay at that standard for the rest of its life. And so there's things that have got to be done, from proper maintenance contracts in terms of, being in a position that we repaint and recarpet and having to replace certain items, whether or not it be, something that we're doing in a kitchen or a bathroom. Our whole job is to make sure that we're there through the entire journey. And this is interesting. Sometimes that might be the journey of renovation. Sometimes that might be about the journey of ownership inside of a property. So today you're going to talk to us a little bit about that, because obviously properties are in a position that they go through some life cycles, and there's the life cycle of maintenance, and then there's the preparation and getting it ready to go to market. Tell us a little bit about what you see your best clients actually do and how they add a lot of value in that process.
Definitely. So our best clients, who sort of sit at the top of, the marketplace in terms of agents and agencies, are definitely spending the time and the conversation, definitely having those hard conversations with their clients. At times, sometimes they're easy conversations. Sometimes you've got those clients that already know what they need to do, but definitely having some hard conversations around it and understanding what it does require, what it does take, and what kind of investment needs to happen to get that ready for sale.
And this is a great conversation. I remember very early on where people would say to me, hey, Josh, you got to spend about 0.5 to maybe 1% of the property's value in marketing to get it marketed. Now, I don't know about you, but literally, would you sell a car if it had a scratch on it, or would you quickly take it to the detailer, get that little scratch buffed out to then be in a position that you make it look like new? And this is the interesting thing. I'm a believer that the way that people drive their cars back into the car dealership when they go to sell them tells you a lot about who they are. Because if it looks any different than how they drove it out, then literally they've probably undervalued the asset. Now, this happens in property all the time, right? So let's think a little bit about what an agent needs to do. You've got to be in a position that you've got to win the listing. As a part of winning that listing, if you sell beautiful properties, you get more beautiful properties, right?
That's right.
So our job is to say, okay, great. When we walk in, okay, sometimes you don't want to have those conversations. So can you get someone else who can go and talk to them about styling? Because it's very personal.
It is.
About how things look.
It is. And you're essentially coming in, on someone's nest and what they've been nesting and creating in their family home.
Yeah.
And creating all these memories and going, oh gosh, you really need to change this. There's obviously a way of being able to approach that. And it is treading really lightly, and it is sort of there's a psychology around bringing that guard down with them first, and then approaching those conversations, I suppose.
And this is a great one because from an agent's perspective, there's also a timing thing where you've got urgency and you think you got to move quickly. And sometimes it's worth kind of slowing down to get it done right because it really will make a difference. And other times it's about, well, who do I know that could get that? So I'll give you an idea. I was saying to my property manager at one point, hey, I've got to repaint my property. And they're like, oh, okay. And then the tenant moved out and they said, oh, we can repaint now. I'm like, oh, okay. And they go, yeah, we've got the painter for you. I'm like, yeah, but it's 10 weeks. I'm like, well, I can't have the property vacant for 10 weeks. And they said, well, you're the one who wanted to get it painted. And like, this is where you excel because it's about the speed and the quality of trades. So tell us a bit of an idea. What are some of the things that an agent calls you up to get done to a property for preparing it for sale, as opposed to styling and the preparing side?
Yes.
What are some of the things that people get done?
Look, 9 out of 10 times it's painting. It's looking at the floors and updating those, whether it's a floor sand, changing the carpets over, any, I guess, repairs that would cause a concern to a buyer. That's certainly, top list always. And that could be anything. It could be, an unhinged door, or it could be there's a hole in the wall or something like that. It's just going to sort of, I guess, flag that the buyer might need to spend a little bit more money rather than having it prepared and having it ready to go and just drop their bags in. And they're reaching into their pockets to secure the home. Yeah. So, and then cleaning, obviously cleaning always needs to happen. It always needs to look good. And house washing, especially on a single dwelling. It really needs a house wash and to make it sparkle. It's curbside appeal. So what are they seeing when they get out of the car? And landscaping. Yeah.
And then what are some of the more extensive things? Like, do people actually refit kitchens and bathrooms?
Definitely. Yeah. Sometimes I go into a property and they are of the plan that they need to do a whole kitchen refurb. There are options around what you can do with updating a kitchen if it's obviously in a solid and good condition. The cabinetry, the carcasses, they're all in good condition. There are options where you can sort of update the handles, the tapware, the sinks, the bench top perhaps, or just doing a resurface throughout. And that honestly, it really changes everything, and it's fast. So we're looking at, that's the other thing, we're always considering, okay, so when do we need to be on the market? Why are they needing to be on the market so quickly, I suppose, whether they've bought or there's something else kind of going on
Urgency,
for them. Urgency. And then it's working back and going, okay, what are the options that we can approach and attend to in that time frame?
And I think this is a really important conversation because what you're actually also saying to agents, hey, this is a completely different way to manage your pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
Because, when you always talk to an agent, hey, I need to get more pipeline and who are my sellers, and I don't really know who's next.
Yeah.
But if they've got a project that's running for a week or maybe 6 weeks, depending on how detailed it may well be, end of a tenancy, now it's vacant, let's get it ready, then these are really important things that you can be going to go and build those relationships like for a long period of time until they're actually ready to actually come to market.
Exactly. And we do recommend that that's something and a conversation that you do have with your clients or your vendors to understand, okay, what's the timing? How do we add value in the time that you have it? Whether it's now, later, 5 years, 10 years, whether it's an investment property, you're living in it or someone else's. It's really important to understand what are we looking at.
This sounds kind of crazy, but when I bought my house in Sydney, the gardens needed to be redone. And I got onto a great garden guy and I said, okay, great, can we redo them? And he came back with his quote and it felt really expensive at the time. And I'm like, okay, great. So, and we did it. And I said to him, hey, great, now that we've done it, can I get you to come back and maintain it? And he was like, oh, no, once we've done them, we move on. Yeah. And I was like, no, like I want a maintenance contract. And that was the first time ever that he'd ever had anyone request a maintenance contract. And now I've been there for 10 years and he's maintained it for that whole 10-year period.
And has he extended his business too?
Yeah. So he's done some good stuff. But the interesting foundational piece is that, okay, great, this is actually about changing the paradigm. So the first major area where someone comes to Cordony is they go, okay, great, we need to make a recommendation and we've got properties at varying levels of need. We've got some properties that literally, can you guys just go through, fix all the squeaks, make all the doors open and close, make sure that all the locks work? That would be awesome. Right the way through to, okay, great, we need a full new kitchen, we need brand new floors, we need, to replace windows, we need to be in a position, we've got to redo the entire deck, to make it compliant and to put up the pool fencing and to make all those things occur. So an agent's at a point that they can literally ring your team and go, hey guys, this is what I've got, here's my job brief. Okay, great, can you go out, can you meet with the client and can you then loop back to us about where that's come in terms of what the quote's going to cost, how it's actually going to be funded, the timing associated with doing that.
Yes.
And so then we can actually all mirror it together. And can we put some speed on it, or does it need appropriate time if it needs council approvals or certain things depending on what it is that you're doing?
Yes.
And you'll manage that entire process and give feedback back to the agent around it.
The whole process, and we will be very honest if there is something that doesn't quite fit for that, or it's not worth the investment because we're not making the formula of spending $1 to make $3 back, for instance.
So capital growth is really important, and not overexpending, right?
That's right, and that's sometimes it's just a hard conversation that I have to have.
What do you mean my purple velour wall has not improved the value?
Exactly, and we do get clients sort of using that as a design experience or design. What's the word for it?
Well, you do get this whole conversation around where people have got this design locked in their head.
That's right.
But that's not what the market sees is good right now.
Yeah, and it's the conversation is let's go and make it, we need to target the whole demographic within your target market. And that could look like different families. It could look like they're at different stages of their life. But we need to create more money in your bank account rather so that you can go and do it at your next place. Let's forget about doing these, purple walls or terracotta tiles or whatever it might be that really they feel is necessary for the house. Let's go and do it at your next place.
Founders is brought to you by Josh Phegan Digital. When we were setting out to go and create Josh Phegan Digital, we just had this whole idea that we wanted training to be on demand. And everything in our life is on demand. We just press play inside of the Netflix app. We press play on YouTube, play on Spotify. Why couldn't we just press play on training? And what we decided is we want to be super relevant to real estate agents so that in under a couple of minutes each day, if you wanted to, you could upskill and you could grow in new ways. And so we decided that we were going to release this thing that we called The Edit, which is basically the latest in property news stories that's happening every week right the way around the country. So you could be incredibly sharp in your conversations with sellers. And then we built out the short courses, which was all about rapidly building skills, whether or not it's about learning how to get better fees or to put on an assistant. And then we actually wanted to give you access to blueprints so you didn't have to wait for it every year. You could just watch it whenever you wanted and actually go from zero to hero around everything that it takes, from goal setting, self and energy management, what you're doing around prospecting, listing, negotiation, and actually just have a system for the way that you work. Together with, getting really inspired by some of the best people in the industry with the black and white interviews. Josh Phegan Digital is available on iOS and also on Android. It's an incredible app and it gives you everything that you'll need to be a much better agent. It's time to switch on.
So the interesting thing is I've got a bedroom at my house which is converted to a gym, and you're going to walk in there. I know that the day I'm going to sell it, you're going to say all of that's out of there. And that goes back to having a queen size bed in it because then they see it as a bedroom, there's more value.
Correct.
And so sometimes you don't see it because you're a part of it. So I think that the first component is that that's really the preparation, getting properties ready to market. When I go to work with some of the lead agents across the country, they are at 100% of all properties that they list have some sort of form of preparation done to them. Whether or not that's fixing a front fence, fixing a broken gate, being in a position of doing the full kitchen reno, they go to that level of detail. Now, this is kind of interesting because I was having a look at it today, and one of the things that I've worked out is that, one of the major reality TV shows that has stood the test of time is that people watch things like The Block and renovation shows and TV renovation shows around gardens and all sorts of stuff. I was like, we actually have the ability to create incredibly addictive content for real estate agents about what you do on the preparing a property for sale. Now, that does not have to make their social account whilst that property is going through its sales campaign. And nor does it have to have the property address. It might be the Mossman house or the Neutral Bay house or whatever. But literally you can get some really good before and after photography and some great little video clips that can be produced. How important is it for agents to start to think about, helping their customers to understand what they can do for them and having that to be one of their reasons that sellers actually call them in?
Oh, definitely. And I think the difference that they can make in showing the products that they are putting on the marketplace as well and what that takes to get it there too. Because I think at the end of the day, a client is coming to an agent because they either seen or heard great things about them and really align or hope to align with the products that they're putting onto the marketplace. So I think it's really important that they are showing, I guess, the investment in both time and money that it may take, the before forwards and the afters to get that product there.
Okay, the next conversation after that is that then now we've got the property prepared and it's looking great. Then you've got to start to think a little bit about styling. Now, styling is a different conversation to preparation of the property because what I want you to think about is the real hard and fast maintenance items that really need to go on to bring it up to grade aesthetically, but also to sometimes structurally. Hopefully not too much, but you get the idea. And then the next part is then about the styling. Do styling trends change?
Definitely.
Are you telling me that my type like genes are not in right now? And so this is the whole
I would
thing.
refer you back to Kahlia.
But that whole idea is that, like, as it does in fashion, it also does in the way that we live in properties.
Yes.
And maybe the lounge couch that I bought 10 years ago is not necessarily the stylization, or maybe the size for the space is different. And, you know, I don't know. My mum thinks that she's taught me some great styling tips on properties, and she's like, don't have too many things that are tall in a house because it can make it look really small, and don't have dark roofs or dark walls because it can make it look really small. Like,
she's right there.
Okay, great. Like, Mum, you got it right. And so this is the interesting thing is like there's stylists and then there's stylists.
Yes.
And so there's a bit of pump and fluff, and, you know, people want to argue about karate chopping pillows, but there is more to styling than that, right?
Oh, definitely. Before making things look pretty, we have to actually understand what the function or the likely function or the potential function of the space is for the likely family that may want to come and, you know, move into the house or purchase the house, before you sort of start thinking, okay, it's blues and greens, or, you know, we put
certain vases, plants,
certain vases, or florals or anything like that. It's actually, okay, so when we're standing in the space quoting, it's going, okay, what is going to add more value to this property? Is it a bedroom or is it a study? Usually it's a bedroom over a study because the more bedrooms in the property are better. It kind of sets you up in the marketplace, or above in the marketplace. And then it's looking at living spaces and selling the lifestyle within that. So I have clients who, when I go there, you know, there are balls kicked around at the back, and there's a soccer net and all those sorts of things. I like that they leave it out there, because when we walk out there, likely that the kids, if they come with you to an open home, they are out there kicking the ball around.
Sure.
Instantly, mum and dad fall in love.
Yeah.
You know, so it's selling the lifestyle, whereas before it was very much, I guess, staging rather than styling. And I sort of use that term because I feel like staging is a bit more clinical, whereas styling is almost feeling like it's lived in. It's there's a bit of life within the home, basically.
This is that whole conversation about, like, really understanding that, you know, people buy the perceived lifestyle rather than the property itself.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And one of my key clients is a very successful and well-known real estate agent. When he walked through the house that he ended up buying, he made an offer for all furniture and as an inclusion.
Yep.
And he may or may not have just brought in his suits.
And that's what they want. They want a turnkey property, right? So that goes in saying for all of this that we've spoken about today, but definitely for styling, we are seeing more and more this idea of having new, or this idea of having, well, obviously they've fallen in love with the whole idea of the house, not just the bricks and the mortar. It's the lifestyle, it's how the spaces are being used, and it's how they've been styled.
And, you know, there's that dreaded phone call when an owner rings you and says, we bought the home 6 months ago, things have changed, we need to sell it. Can you come out? And then you walk through it and they've got their furniture in there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, can you please go back to what we had?
Yes.
Like, can't we just use the previous photos? No. And this is that whole thing about, like, really understanding that we do sell that perceived lifestyle. So if we're in a done-for-you society, you know, we love everything to be convenient. We love it to be fast. We love it to be easy. Okay, great. Now you actually have a point of difference. We can say, hey, you know what, we're going to get the team from Cordony to come out. We're going to give you an idea on what it's going to look like to style the property. We're going to make some appropriate recommendations on what we believe will help you to maximize sale price. And that could be taking some furniture out. It might be putting some things in storage. It might be adding some extra things in. And then there's all the soft furnishings and other things. I sound like I know what I'm doing. Where you're putting in some plants and putting in some blankets. But yeah, that's where I went south. So the throws. Okay, great. And then down to like what you're doing to towels and all of those other things. And so that stylization actually really looks amazing. And now you're saying, okay, great. Well, that's important. Now for agents, you know, one of the conversations is that, okay, well, what happens next as a part of that? And that is about saying, okay, if an owner is paying for those items, they're more motivated to sell. Now, in the set of market conditions that we're in today, where we've got the most expensive money that we've had in 14 years, after we've just gone through the cheapest money that's ever been available in recorded history, what is important is that ultimately you've got to make sure that owner motivation is there. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can do payment, and, you know, there's a really big advanced thing where you've got, you know, simple things like electronic funds transfer on an invoice. There's a credit card. And then also too, there's a lot of buy now, pay later type services that are available that can help to fund and finance not only the preparation of a property, but also to the styling of a property.
Correct, yeah.
Give me a rough idea. What percentage do you think of real estate agencies are in a position that they're using a buy now, pay later for their styling versus maybe a credit card or an electronic funds transfer? Is a bit of a gut feel on that?
Yeah, look, I still think it's pretty low.
Okay.
There are more instances where we are paid with credit card or with funds. around that, there are obviously conversations where clients are like, gosh, it's such an expensive task to sell. Whether they realise it beforehand or not, I'm not sure. But I do think that agents there are so many things available for them that may work for their clients over another product that might be out there, because there are so many different facilities now. But I think get on board with it, because it could just mean that helping hand and being able to list that property that you might be fighting against with someone else.
So the conversation here is about like tangible difference. And often a lot of agents will say, well, how do I actually show that? So demonstrable case studies. Here's a property that went to market with an agent that didn't sell. We then got Cordony involved. They came through, they did the quick, lick of paint, they had the conversation, they moved a few things around, they got the right throw. They did some of those things on the furniture, whatever the story might be. And we went back to market it, and it ended up selling for $100,000 more.
Yeah.
And so this is that whole idea about like literally that's where, and now that's a great one on expireds, but literally this is where you've got to start to learn how you position and sell. So ultimately, would you spend 10 to make 100? And that's really what I want to talk to you a little bit about today.
Sure.
And there's a way to fund it so it doesn't impact your day-to-day cash flow. And that's actually buy now, pay later.
That's right.
Now, whatever you use as a provider, I know that you've got providers that you can recommend.
Yes.
But also too, they might already have some providers that are already existingly doing their vendor paid marketing. What is really, really important is that you start thinking, hey, is this a service differentiation point that's really going to matter? Now, I know that if I'm back in selling residential real estate every day of the week, it's got to look great. It's got to have a great scent to it. It's got to be in a position that someone walks in and goes, I'd love to live here. And I know this sounds funny, but when I walk into a property, the first thing I look at is natural light. If there is no natural light or the natural light isn't great, it's an instant off the list. And so that's that whole conversation, is that like people will have really innate things. And I've got a motorcycle, so where will I park that? And if all the walls in the garage are filled with tools and I don't see a parking space, I'm out. And so this is a really important part, that's actually what you're doing, is getting someone to reimagine spaces in a really powerful way.
That's right, yeah.
Now, so outside of that, real estate agents have probably not thought about the next step in that, isn't that sometimes a client walks through and goes, I love this. Can I buy all the furniture? You're starting to see people looking for a package price of what would it take to also have X, Y, and Z included in the sale.
Exactly, and it is happening more and more, which we love. Obviously, loving knowing that what we're doing is capturing people's hearts and capturing their emotions, and they're obviously wanting the whole package. But it is again, it stems back to that turnkey being just everything's done. It's they're opening the door and they're ready to go. They're just bringing their clothes or the cutlery, for instance, or whatever it might be. But we are seeing more and more of it happen, especially the inquiries. And then even if it's small bits and pieces, they just fall in love with something. But it's obviously working, right? It's my response to that is always, well, it's obviously working. What we're doing is working.
So, and
that's why it's so powerful.
And I think the big conversation is that like realize that that's actually a thing. And particularly like I was thinking about it, you get the opportunity to sell 2 units and they're both the same. One's vacant and the other one you can style.
That's right.
The one that's styled will sell every day of the week. And we all know that. So foundationally, don't take empty properties to market. And we've even had situations where there's a tenancy in play and we've asked for permission of the tenant, would it be okay if we came through and we had the property styled? And then they go, yeah, that's fine. And you actually end up getting a great sale price for it. And they actually enjoyed having the property a little bit differently. And wow, I never knew that you could do that.
Yeah, and this is a conversation I have with my clients most days, and from house to house. The reason why styling does so well is because we are showing the space, we are showing the potential use of that space. A lot of buyers, majority of buyers who walk through don't really can't envision what's going on, where things should go, how the space is supposed to be used. Obviously, the owner knows how the house can be used for them or potentially because they've been there for a few years or however long it's been. But that is why styling does so well, is because we are showing them exactly what it needs to be. And it's not just a floor plan, obviously, which is, a flat lay sort of thing. We're showing them exactly how everything can work in the property.
The house that I was lucky enough to buy in Sydney 10 years ago, the previous owner was an architect, and she had a phenomenal eye for the building.
Right.
But shocking eye for fit out. And so by the time I've done it, I've had people who've walked through that house and gone, oh, wow, that's really something. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, because I've had great people along the way that I've met that have helped to make some really good quality decisions.
That's right.
This is important because it leads us to the next thing, is that like a lot of agents are always trying to get their pipeline to move and they're trying to find ways to go and win listings. And, the greatest listing of all time is the one when you've already got a great relationship. And what a lot of people forget is that, when you buy a property, that's when you begin the maintenance journey. And it's about thinking about looking after it and keeping it up to grade and knowing what the right things are to do capital works. You've made a really clear decision that that's actually a great area of service, that once an agent sells to a buyer, introduction to that buyer is a really important conversation, because you can help them in terms of buying furniture and fitting the property out. You can then also to help them in terms of the ongoing maintenance of that property for a life cycle. And when they get to maybe a position that they no longer need the property, or it's the right time to get a market appraisal, that you can become the referral lead source back to the real estate agent. Tell us about how that's working.
Yeah, and also capital investment, I would guess, or increasing the value of the property whilst it's there. So that could be changing a kitchen up, or we've got coming up to a life cycle of the kitchen and it needs to be changed within 15 to 20 years, sort of thing. It's making a plan. It's making a plan with your purchaser to see them back again, I guess, in 5-10 years, however long they've got the property for. And it's making a plan in maintenance, making a plan in how do we improve the property, how can we see, that we add the value and put it in the next place in the marketplace next time around. But essentially the importance is that relationship between the agent and the purchaser and, well, anyone really.
And I think this is really important though, because it's like, okay, I'm new to town, I got to move in. When I did my garden, did I get burnt or did I pay fair market value? When I literally got the painter in, did I pay fair market value or did I get burnt? And like literally, you're the one in the know with the relationships with great tradespeople that literally charge appropriate for what it is that they do. It's highly valuable. They're speedy. They get excellent work delivered. That makes a great outcome. And this is like, take the uncertainty out of hoping that a supplier is going to turn up and move to having a trusted partner. Exactly. And I think the other thing is that that you've got a group of good people who are guiding you through the process. So same with the agent, good people usually, what am I trying to say? Good people are really easy to find, right? Yeah, well, yeah. And once you've got them, you stay with them for life. That's right. And this is the big thing. I think that loyalty is one of the most important things in business and in life. It leads me to this important conversation today about real estate agents, and rather than actually having suppliers, why don't you have partners? And what I mean by that is I always think about it whenever I go to work with someone. I say, hey, if I'm going to do training with you, I want you to think that we're going to train you for the next decade. Yeah. Right. And it's I need long term. And I need to be good enough to do that. Right. Yeah. But interesting enough, you also need to give me the opportunity and the scope to be able to go and do that. How do you make sure that you've got a great relationship and you don't look at it as a supplier, but instead you look at you as a partner? What are the important things to make those relationships function? I think it's a trust as well. It's a trust between both supplier and the contractor or whoever it might be. There's got to be a trust in knowledge. There's got to be a trust in products that they've been able to achieve before, whether that's selling, whether that's doing what we do and making things look great, and making sure that they're in good condition. But I think it all comes down to trust. I know that I get sometimes phone calls on the weekend or after hours during the week because they're sitting down with their clients and they're having that conversation and they want me to be part of that conversation, which is really nice to feel trusted that that I've got the answer, or working just working with each other and throwing ideas and going, what if we did this and what if we did that? Or maybe let's have a look at a different approach. And so this is kind of interesting because the way I look at it is that if I want to get great relationships out of a partnership, responsiveness matters. Correct. Yeah. So, okay, great. So if I text you, I give you a quick call, that you come back to me as soon as possible, even if that's, hey, I'm in meetings until 5 tonight, but I'll give you a call once we're done. Correct, yeah. Secondary point about that is quality of brief. So when you're coming to us, make sure that you've got a really good quality brief to say, hey, I don't know what to do here, tell me. Or, look, this is a really limited budget and it's pretty much just walls. If you can have a quick look and let me know what your thoughts are. Yeah. Give me a bit of a brief about the client. So who am I going to go and see? What does it look like? Just so I know that don't mention the cricket or definitely mention the cricket as a part of that. And then the next conversation is that literally, I think that money is the greatest divider of all relationships. So make sure we're really clear about payment. So is it a payment plan for them and what's accessible and what's inside of their budget? Yes. I don't want to go and recommend $100,000 if they've got a mindset of $7,000. and so that's actually an okay thing to actually really brief that. And then the other thing is that literally give really good quality feedback. So set expectations up. What does it take when we're going to go and do preparation? What's the timeline for that? What does it take in terms of the styling? What's the timeline for that? How are we going to handle difficult situations when they happen? A campaign that hasn't sold and you need to extend for a week, 2 or 3 weeks in terms of the styling. A conversation around something that might have happened. If there is an unfortunate incident, we're going to need some time to be able to get that little architrave repainted because there's a slight scratch when it moved out before we get to settlement day. So, we're going to go and do all of those things, but these are a two-way street in actually building a great relationship. So I'd say sitting down with your partner in property and having that conversation, say, hey, what are we going to go and do here when we're working with the Cordony team? We need to make sure that we're really clear up front. And when you do all of those things, you actually have great relationships and you can have an incredible decade and some of working together to be able to produce some amazing results in community, which leads into some phenomenal social content, which leads into more referrals, more uncontested business, because you made the decision to get really good at the preparation of property, the styling of that property to maximize sale price, and then the ongoing maintenance of that asset until it comes back to market again, and so that you can actually increase the lifetime value of a customer because they do multiple transactions with you, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also comes down to a bit of psychology where it's about caring and trust and knowing that someone's got your back. And it's, they might be a professional in whatever industry they're in, and then using the professional in the industry that obviously we're in to guide them through that, but not just to sort of just sever the tie at one point or another. It's a process. It's holding their hand through it. It's being there when they've got a question or that needs to be answered or a concern that they might have.
This stuff really matters. When you're looking at your real estate practice, think about all the services that you can provide to a client before, during and post a transaction. That's how you got to increase the value. We'll do everything all the way through to even getting the mail redirected. That's kind of like one conversation. The secondary part is about really understanding what you do as a great real estate agent is that you see things that other people don't see through great suppliers that can then actually help you to become a great partner to naturally improve the saleable value and actually lead to, really changing someone's life in terms of what they can do in terms of capital growth and saleable value of an asset. If someone needed to get in contact with the Cordony team, there's lots of options. If they want to have someone come out, if they want to have a bit of a chat in a sales meeting, they want to have a conversation over a phone, they want to give a trial job and see how it works first and build confidence over a period of time, where's the best place for them to go?
Get in touch with our concierge Lana. She's the first point of contact. Our phone number is 1300 559 but otherwise, have a look at our in social media, have a look at our website, see what we've achieved. We've been in business for 13 years, so we've lasted and we've been around and we've done thousands and thousands of property. But hopefully we can get in touch.
Awesome, so lovely to spend some time with you. Look forward to seeing you again at Blueprint this year.
Amazing.
And literally, you've got a great set design as always. So we're looking forward to seeing how that looks for Money and Drew.
Look pretty.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. You don't do the makeup, someone else does that, but definitely making that room look amazing. So awesome to spend some time with you today.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Cheers.